pretty big fan of video games with permadeath in them, so back in 2015 when I heard about the game Darkest Dungeon, I decided to grab it, and I actually have my initial review right here.
5 minutes later, the leper is refusing healing, the Hellion is smashing herself in the face with an axe, and the Vestal is choosing to attack instead of heal. Oh, and the Highwayman dies of a heart attack! 9 out of 10, great game. Granted, that was only 45 hours in, but with my current time, I'd like to amend that and say it's actually one of my favorite games of all time. Comfort game, in fact. I turn to it for relaxation and to de-stress, even. And I've always wanted to do a little review for it. Darkest Dungeon is a challenging roguelike, sometimes to the point of downright unfair, where you delve dungeons with a group of adventurers to restore your ancestral home by fighting Lovecraftian beasts. Your heroes will be bloodied, beaten, deal with diseases and mental afflictions, and if they're really lucky, die of stress-induced heart attacks. The atmosphere of despair that seeps from this game is downright oppressive. You know, exactly what I look for in my comfort game. Oh dear. For this particular run-through of the game, I was streaming. See, you get to name the characters that you put into harm's way, and what better way to thank someone for showing up to the stream than to let them have a heart attack due to unsustainable stress. Another thing that people really like to bring up about this game is the difficulty. It's like the Darkest Dungeon. And while yes, it can be, if you follow a couple simple rules, you can mitigate a lot of the challenging aspects of this game. Rule number 1. Vestal. That's it, that's all the rules. Okay, that's a bit of an oversimplification. There is a lot of mechanical depth to this game, fair bit of resource management and threat assessment. But you go into the dungeon, you need a healer. And the Vestal is the best at that. Other healers include the Antiquarian, and she's terrible. The other medical unit is the Occultist.
Look, if you're trusting someone called the Occultist with your medical care,
I think my favorite piece of Darkest Dungeon fanwork is this meme. Needless to say, you need at least a quarter of your barracks to be Vestals. And jesters. One thing that really sets Darkest Dungeon apart from other games is stress. You've probably played games where HP management is a part of it, like 90% of video games are that. But how many deal with stress? It is a big thing in Darkest Dungeon. Stress is one of the few things that you consistently need to pay for with your dungeon money to fix, and in later stages, it can absolutely kill you if you don't keep a lid on it. That's why you always need a designated therapist in your party. Okay, the Jester is the best, no questions asked. But unlike the healer, other classes can carry the banner of the Team Shrink. Like the Crusader, literally carrying a banner, or the Houndmaster and his emotional support animal. I always have these 2 slots filled in my party, and we easily avoided deaths until week 56. Okay, we did have a little mishap on week 6 where our Vestal stayed an extra week at the brothel, which, I mean, understandable. But try explaining that to Yuki once we peel him off the wall with a stick and a spoon. But it's okay, because we have Yuki 2 Electric Boogaloo. And while I adore the gameplay of Darkest Dungeon, the thing that I love is the artistry. Look at that beautiful art style, the dark, gritty, hand-drawn characters, the minimalist animation, especially in the combat, just makes every hit land so much harder. The Lovecraftian style just oozing from every orifice. My favorite thing is that you never see a human character's eyes. They're always just cast in darkness. Actually, back up. There is one human character's eyes who you do see, and that's the Prophet. There's his eyes right there, but I think we can all agree that he's cheating. The music is pretty fantastic too. Stuart Chatwood's themes give a perfect, ominous vibe, but my favorite of them all is the boss theme. So whenever you fight any boss, always the same song. But when you go against the Siren, they add in a woman's haunting chanting. Okay, no pun intended here. It is a truly enchanting theme. Oh, and the narrator! Oh my gosh, okay. So throughout the whole game, there's this narrator, and his voice is made from a silk velvet polymer. Listening to him is like having your ears massaged by unicorns. The guy's name is Wayne June, and the coolest little tidbit that really adds to the Lovecraftian vibe this game is going for is Wayne June does audiobook narration for H.P. Lovecraft books. His eerie voice really brings those tales and this video game to life. However, there is one voice line that is so out of place. Like, was this an early line that they never got back to? Or like, what's going on here?
Even the fiercest beast will lay down when it is not eaten. Steal their food.
So you boot up the game and you get two heroes, Dismas and Reynold, and their stagecoach crashed. And now it's up to you to go through the tutorial, slice up the enemies, pillage the treasures, and do not talk to that thing. Okay, she's the owner of the HOA, and she has a problem with everything from the length of your grass blades to the color of your mailbox. Seriously, last week I saw her squabbling with the plague doctor over the typeface on his no soliciting sign. Approach it at your own risk. After that, though, the game starts. Not in earnest yet. Most of the buildings are still busted up. You need to go through a tutorial dungeon. So grab the Vestal and Plague Doctor, name them after the people in your chat, and get it going. Also, I think it's here that I should mention that I did cheat a little bit on this run.
Nothing too major, like listening to awesome Sentai music during boss fights and using maps for pre-established dungeons, reloading save files. And I was using backer trinkets. What was that? Oh, backer trinkets? Yeah, I'll talk about backer trinkets. Okay, so when the game was first, back in its Kickstarter phase, if you donated to certain tiers, you could unlock really cool little backer trinkets. And the unlock codes are still in the game, so I looked up a couple of them. Mainly just the Stay Frosty cloak. It added a lot of survivability, and I really wanted Dismas and Reynold to make it to the last dungeon. No, you said something about save files. I really wanted Dismas and Reynold to make it to the last dungeon.
Well, we went through some dungeons and the stress started mounting on our only Vestal, so I went her to de-stress in the brothel. Mostly because funny. You see, the definition of the word Vestal is literally just virgin. Not anymore, baby! Unfortunately, she was our only healer. The dungeon went relatively fine, but on the next dungeon, the Vestal who had just learned about the wonders of the brothel refused to embark on the next dungeon. We're at death's door. No problem. We just need to kill that dude real quick. Crap, they healed him. Oh, and now that dude is blocking attacks. Hit the blooming deck! Oh, okay, this is just perfect! After that, we got more Vestals and were able to avoid deaths for a whole 52 weeks. Leveling up characters, going through dungeons, fighting the frightening bosses, and bosses were actually pretty easy. You see, one of my viewers, Quick Nerd, told us about this Sentai show from the 80s called Kamen Rider. And so he just played the show's theme song every time we were fighting bosses. Now, this did get a majority of my stream's copyright claimed, but every boss was a freaking cinch. So I kept it up so we could keep the bosses down. Bro, Kamen Rider Black RX 104 damage! Get turgled, son! Frick yeah, that's the power of Kamen Rider Black RX 20th century version! It was right on the coolest part too! Woo! Honestly, the use of Black RX should probably be banned in speedruns. But the enemies I hate the most in Darkest Dungeon are actually the crab monsters. They have this stupid move called Artery Pinch, and even if you bring all available bandages, the bleed caused by these guys is terrifying. Did your granny say cover up your neck? Keep your blood from the outside. I need to word stare your argument apart. You're gonna die. I'd rather pinch your artery. Oh no! There will be some blood coming from my neck. Just a sec. I'll use my bandage, but they'll never be enough. I slashed your stuff. I'd rather keep my blood inside me. That's why I'm gonna pinch your artery. And that's how it went for most of the game. Get good trinkets, keep the torch up. I don't like how the game incentivizes you abusing your soldiers by getting better loot for fighting in low light conditions. I am a good mama. I take care of my spring chickens. I always send them with plentiful supplies, the finest trinkets, a Vestal, and a therapist. And if they came out of the dungeon feeling a little overwhelmed, a little tense, a little frazzled, if you will, I make sure that I let them relieve their stress. Except for freaking Quick Nerd's character over there, he had two of the worst negative quirks ever. The Gambler, which meant he would only gamble for stress relief, which wouldn't be too bad of a problem, except he also had the trait of being a known cheat and therefore being banned from the table. The only dungeons that I truly try and avoid are the quote-unquote long dungeons. These require you to take 2 logs in. If you play this game and you want to try one of these quests, just make sure that your schedule for the day is clear. These ones are time-consuming. I mean, it was even worse for me because I have ADHD, and partway through the dungeon, I tapped out of the game and started updating my YouTube channel banner. But even if you are unafflicted, tackling a long dungeon will take a sizable portion of your day. Unafflicted. ADHD is an affliction.
A mind unwound, unfocused.
But after several weeks in and out of game, we were ready. The Darkest Dungeon is 4 pre-made dungeons with some of the toughest enemies in the game. Not as bad as the Tamatoa crabs, but definitely up there. These dungeons are so traumatizing that after soldiers enter it, they will refuse to take part in any more, meaning you're gonna need at least 12 soldiers at level 6 before you can even attempt the Darkest Dungeon. The first one isn't too bad. I mean, it mainly just primes you, showing you that the enemies in here will kick your trash. Okay, so profile number 8, we take this, copy it over, and kick your trash, but with fully upgraded skills, weapons, and
cheating. Fairy dust, you can make it through.
If we're being 100% honest, the only truly horrible dungeon is number 2. The boss monsters have this horrific attack. Fortunately, they do give you trinkets to make the attack ineffective. Well, 3 of them. Yeah, for 4 of your adventurers. After the scales tip and that first dude starts freaking out, the rest of the dungeon becomes much more of a nightmare. Number 3 is supposed to be exhausting by giving you 4 campfires, but every time I've done it, I've kept the map handy and I've only ever used 2. Which brings us all to the final dungeon. Oh, how the time flies. It's just like 77 weeks ago, Reynold and Dismas wandered into our little hell-bitten village. But now, with their levels maxed, their armor forged, and their skills perfected, the time has finally come to put my ancestors' terrible curse to rest. Okay, I haven't mentioned it before, but there are 3 crazy trinkets that you can get. The heads. One has come with us into every dungeon since we got it. Junia's head. She used to be a healer, so she adds a lot of healing to all the heal spells. And usually I gave Dismas some cloaks to raise his evasion, but this time I'm gonna give him this. Okay, Dismas, look. Do not look into this bag. Most people would not like what they see in here, but I think you would be especially upset with what's in here.
Who's in the box? Oh, what's in the box?
And then the 4 brave warriors trotted off into the darkest dungeon.
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
It would take a miracle.
Before the fight, the specter of my ancestor, Wayne June himself, explains why he was messing around with eldritch abominations in the first place.
I found it here. And in that moment of brain-blasting realization,
Brain blast!
And now for the multifaceted battle, where we turn on the Kamen Rider theme song and fight. Except for Evander the Jester, no fighting for him. He just strummed away to keep everyone stressed low. He's a pacifist. We fought the reflections of the past and eventually forced our way to the next phase, where the ancestor just whoops around, freaking out our people with terrible attacks. It takes all we got to keep our HD up, and Evander just continues to strum away, keeping the stress low because he's a pacifist. But we're listening to Sentai music from the 80s. We make it through that phase as well, and now we have the Heart of Darkness. We got 3 turns to regroup, reform, and oh my gosh, we're gonna die! The Heart of Darkness is a straight up cheater. Every time he loses a third of his HP, you are guaranteed to lose a soldier. Go ahead, click on your least favorite daughter. It sucks I gotta do this, Kellen. We may need healing, but I can't let Dismas and Reynolds fail after coming so far. And poor Evander, he doesn't deserve to die. He's a pacifist. Right up until he isn't. Evander, it's been an honor serving with you. It was a grand finale. Oh my gosh! Holy crap! All 3 survivors! Heck yeah, brother! Woo! Evander! You done it! You done it, dude! Sorry, buddy, you don't get to die. You get to go home with Dismas and Reynold. You're one of the main characters too, man. Dude! Yo! What a perfect ending for my video! That's Darkest Dungeon, one of my favorite games, and definitely the game that, although the characters don't, I turn to for stress relief. Such an elegantly designed game. Once you get good at it, the choices become second nature. Galloping through this artistic triumph and taking care of your soldiers is always a blast, and I'm so glad I could finally make a video and more importantly carry Dismas and Reynolds to the end. Heck, even Evander was there, so that's awesome too.
Thank you for watching my video, and thanks to everyone who stopped in this stream. I will be streaming XCOM pretty soon here, so why don't you stop by? I'm not nearly as good at XCOM as I am at Darkest Dungeon, so if you stop by, I will definitely make sure that you can perish to the extraterrestrial horde. See you then.